G'day there guys, it's your Aussie Hubby Markee, back at it again with another r/entitled people video. Now with that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and get ready for some bloody entitled people. Our first post today is by user DaFoxtrot86, titled, Entitled Sister Reneged on a Promise and It Cost Her. This happened around 1996 when I was 10 years old. At the time, my sister was acting out a lot and was always in and out of trouble. This is just one of many stories from that era. In the summer of 1996, my older sister was regularly going across the street to hang out with two neighbor girls whose family had a pool. Every kid on the street wanted to swim in this pool, because the homeowner had built a deck around it that everyone could chill on and jump into the pool from. I, of course, wanted to go swimming there as well, but I wasn't often invited. Most other kids just walked in and were allowed to swim. But before long, I was noticing my sister was going more and more without me. I ended up the lonely kid sitting in his room or in the front yard playing a Game Boy Pocket. One day, my sister tells me that she wanted to do something funny with my hair. Nothing permanent, mind you, but my hair had gotten long enough that you could make it look crazy with a few tweaks. She took some hair ties and made my hair into some style I don't remember. Then my sister told me that if I kept that hairstyle for the rest of the day and let our parents see it, then I could go to the pool party at the neighbor's house that Saturday. I jumped at the opportunity to go and agreed. I did exactly as she asked, and our parents had a good laugh about it. That Saturday, my sister ran ahead to the party and left me behind. I got ready and walked over with an inflatable tube around my waist that I think looked like some animal. Been too long, don't remember what it was. I got to the gate for the neighbor's backyard. I did not try to open it for myself, as that would have been rude. The rule was that you were supposed to be let in, and I didn't want to make anyone mad. My sister was playing in the water with several other kids. I had to call out a few times before any of them even acknowledged me. My sister gave me a mean look and asked why I was there. I said to her, "You promised me I could come to the party if I did what you wanted." She looked at me and said, "Yeah, so? So? You promised me. I don't care. Get out." And then I hobbled across the street, sobbing at what had just happened. I just sat by a tree in my front yard crying because I didn't know what to do. After 10 minutes of me loudly crying non-stop, my mum came out to see what was wrong and why I wasn't at the party. I explained in detail what had happened and what she said to me. There was a fire in my mum's eyes that could have melted ice with a glare. She stormed across the street. The ground seemed to cave with every footstep as she stomped over. A few minutes later, she came back, dragging my sister by her arm, kicking and screaming. My sister got grounded for a week, and my mum instituted a new rule. If she was to ever go to another pool party at the neighbor's house again, I had to be invited too. My sister screamed that it was not fair, and openly blamed me for the whole mess. Lo and behold, the neighbor's girls stopped inviting my sister over all the time. We lived there for 3 more years, and she only got to go to maybe 1 or 2 pool parties over there again. And she blamed me for it for 2 years straight. I called her out on breaking her promise to me, and she just said it was a joke. Like that was supposed to be a good reason for what she did. After we moved in 1999, my sister seemed to forget all about it. I ended up bringing up the story again in my late 20s and told everything in detail just like I did here. My sister, who was about 30 at the time, broke down crying because she had totally forgotten about it till I reminded her, and she apologized to me profusely for her behavior back then. She used to be somewhat entitled, but not anymore. Edit, I would like to clarify that my sister no longer being allowed to go to pool parties next door without me back then didn't mean that she no longer got to hang out with those 2 girls. She still went over to their house and played with them regularly, and they were still very nice to me. We even had Super Soaker Wars in summer. The rule was only for the pool parties. Plus my sister admitted to me years later that both those girls weren't as nice as they seemed, but there weren't a lot of other kids on the street for her to hang out with. Our next post is by user LydiaPZP, titled, Can you wake your husband up so I can ask him something I could have asked you instead? This happened a few years ago. Something else I read on here reminded me of that incident, so here it is. When we first bought our house, it was my husband, my brother, and I living together. My brother was responsible for paying for the internet, plus he pitched in on the rest of the utilities. My husband was working overnights, so he slept during the day. I had the most free time, so I was fixing the house and was often around if any of our neighbors stopped by. Our cast are me, dear husband, my brother, and the neighbor who also happened to be a drug dealer, as we later found out. I was outside working in the front yard so I wouldn't make too much noise while dear husband was sleeping. Dear neighbor comes over and asks if dear husband is home. I say yes, but he's sleeping. Wake him up. I want to ask him something. I'm not waking him up. He's working overnights. If you need something, then you can ask me. But I need to talk to him. Tough luck. He's sleeping and I'm not waking him up. Dear neighbor, looking frustrated. I wanted to ask if I can use your internet. I get a strong signal from you. Can you give me the password? My brother pays for the internet, so he would be the one to ask. Fine. Can you get brother? So I got brother, who didn't really like the neighbor, and for a good reason. Neighbor asks him for the password, and he says, no, that's a security risk. And without another word, brother walks away. Neighbor left after that, so I was able to get back to work. This wasn't the first or the last time neighbor asked to get me dear husband for something I could have answered. I don't know if it's because I'm a woman, or if it's because I'm an immigrant. But apparently, I can't answer any questions or make any decisions. Dear husband just has to be the one to do it all, even though everyone was well aware of his work schedule. Our next post is by FormulaFan123, titled, Entitled Couples Steal a Cat, End Up with Bills Costing More Than the Cat Itself. So this has been going on for years, and now it has reached a conclusion. I thought I will finally post it. Our cast are Auntie, Uncle, Vet, Entitled Couple, EW and EM, which is Entitled Woman and Man, and the daughter of Entitled Couple plus her kids. Story. This started 4 years ago when my auntie and uncle adopted 2 cats. One is very quiet and sleeps a lot and doesn't really go too far from the house. The other cat is the exact opposite. He goes out loads, he only stays in for food and sleep and has an appetite all the time. One day the cat didn't come home for a week. Okay, suspicious but definitely not strange for a cat. Then it happens again and again. By now, my auntie is getting worried and buys a cat tracker. It turns out that the cat was spending his time in a nearby house. At this point, my uncle went round and talked to them about it. Instantly, they denied everything. They didn't encourage the cat or feed it or anything. Suspicious. It becomes more apparent over the next couple of months they were talking out of their asses. The cat is getting fatter and fatter until one day on a visit to the vets, he is placed on a list for at-risk animals. By now, my auntie is angry, and to be fair, I can see why. These people were denying that they had ever fed the cat at all, whilst causing it health problems that could cost it thousands in vet bills. This all boiled down to what can only be described as one of the most entitled acts I have ever heard. At a family gathering, the entitled couple's daughter is just leaving when she spots the cat and decides it's now hers. She just picked it up and drove it back home. 50 miles back home. Fortunately for us, there were some plumbers doing work in the street who watched her take the cat. At first, they had no idea whose cat it was. But when my uncle started asking around to see if anyone had seen it, they told him. We were astonished that they had the audacity to do that, and what's more, they claimed it was their cat they had lost. My uncle was friends with someone who knew the entitled couple's daughter quite well, and confirmed that they had lost a ginger cat who was quite old. The cat they had taken was black. They lost their cat over a year before. How can people be so stupid? This is where my aunt calls in backup. Legal backup. In court, entitled couple are given a cease and desist, as well as bills for healthcare issues the cat had during his time at their house. Entitled couple's daughter is told to give the cat back and is also given a community service project to complete, on animal welfare. Oh, the irony. All went well. But wait, the entitlement continues. When entitled couple's daughter brought the cat back to my auntie, she was ticked. She virtually threw the cat to my auntie and started a screaming rant with the whole street watching. She says, "Me and my kids deserve this cat more." A classic. "Then why don't you just buy one?" ECD completely ignored this. "My kids are so sad. You should at least pay for a new cat for us." "Sorry? Are you off your head?" "Oh my god, why don't you just take your cat and leave me alone? Oh my god." "Please leave." And she screams again. Then, as entitled couple's daughter drives away, she flicks off my aunt as she gives her a friendly wave. Edit: it has been pointed out that I didn't explain well on 2 parts. 1. The bills that entitled couple had to pay were for treatment for weight loss and diabetes. 2. Yes, the cat is allowed outside. It was a rescue and gets violent when not allowed out. The other one is a Burman cat, so stays in. Our next post is by user Godly Kid, titled, "She thinks she has to get in line in front of me." Entitled mother thinks she is entitled to get in front of me in line. So I was in line at the store to get some groceries. I saw that the person behind me had just one item. So I smiled politely and told her she could go in front of me. She thanked me and went in front of me. That's when entitled mum came in, so I turned back around in line when I heard entitled mother. She says, "Hey, you let that lady in front of you go in front of you. I have kids, so I should be able to get in front of you too." I turn around to see her shopping cart filled to the brim. I tried to smile politely again, though it was really hard. And then I reply, "She only had one item, so I let her stand in front of me." Then I turned around and faced the front again, hoping that the conversation was over. But then I hear her shrill and outraged voice. "How stupid is this? I have to get in front of you. I have kids." She gestured wildly at her 2 kids, who were both staring at their mum. I turned back around, this time not even trying to smile, and start talking again. "I got in line before you, and it's my choice if I let anyone go before me or not." Her face turned extremely red, and then she shouted, "You have no respect for your elders." At that point, everyone was staring at us. My face felt hot as I turned back around to face the front of the line. Then my turn came. Except when I started to put the items on the counter, the lady shoved in hers before I could. The employee at the register saw what was going on and quickly intervened. He took the items and pushed them to the side. Then he said, "I'm sorry ma'am, but this young man got in line first, so he gets to go first. Please don't make a big deal." Now, this employee was an elderly man, so the lady couldn't scream, "You have no respect for your elders" again, which was a big relief because her voice was really high. The rest went as it should have, except the lady's face was bright red. I got my items and I walked back home. And in the comments, Verd-Eyed says, "I saw someone try to skip in line the other day. The guy was social distancing, so she scooted over in front. The guy just stood there and waited for her to load up her stuff in the conveyor, walked through the line next to it, and walked in front of her. Then he took the separator and pushed all of her stuff back onto the ground, looked her dead in the eyes and said, 'It would be smart not to try that in the future.' The checkout girl could hardly breathe. She was trying so hard not to laugh." Alex De Winter says, "I was in a checkout line at Dollar Tree. Only one cashier, other was at lunch. Lady in front of me was playing with her crotch goblin and ignoring everyone else. I was behind and to the right of her. Other people came up and got in line on the other side. So when she moved forward, I moved in behind her. She turned around and told me that the other person was behind her. I told her that she didn't even bother looking around, or she would have known that I was already waiting in line. So she beckoned the other lady to go in front of her, and then turned to me, yelling, 'See what you did? Now I'm going to be late because of you. You don't have any manners. You should always let a woman go in front of you.' Nope, I don't cater to the whims of entitled expletives such as yourself. Kindly frick off and leave me alone." Our next post is by Rainbow K, titled, "Neighbors wanted to get the city involved over a shared fence." My parents live next to an interesting European couple. We have so many stories on them. One year, my father had taken leave from his job and decided it was time to change all the fencing. We never asked any of our conjoined neighbors to help us foot the bill. He just let them all know that it was happening. You know, good neighborly stuff. The year he decided to do this, He mentioned it to our entitled neighbours just before they left for their yearly vacation overseas. They always go for approximately 6 months of the year, so my dad planned to do it then, since he would need to be on their driveway for a small portion of it. This is where he was able to make the fence higher, as it would be part of our decking, right at the back door to the house. The neighbours came back and were furious, stating we were blocking their views. There are no views. They are enclosed by large houses and people's backyards, and that it was an ugly colour. It was cedarwood clear coat finish. We brushed them off and forgot about it. A few days later, there was a knock on our door from a city official. He and my dad went through the city plan and everything my dad did to code. When they were done, the official went next door to tell the neighbours the news. It turns out my dad had built within our lot. The official gave him the option of tearing down the fence on the neighbour's side and relocating it to our property lines, which happened to run down the middle of his driveway and through his garage. They also got left with a permanent reminder of it as the official spray-painted markers of where our property was. Wait, is their garage and driveway halfway into their parents' property? Did I read that right? I think the property line cuts through the neighbour's driveway and garage. Same, and it could very much happen if the neighbour's house was built without garage and driveway. If whoever lived in that house, possibly before entitled couple, when those were added, thought, my house needs a garage and a driveway, and look, there's so much space from our house wall to the OP neighbours, so why not there? Well, maybe because OP's family hadn't taken materialistic advantage of their rightful property/lines? If the people living there didn't check the lines, this issue would easily occur. Both houses were built around the 1950s, and the original property lines were never changed from then until now, so it was a surprise to my parents. We all moved in about 15 years ago, so all was standing, but we had no idea until this all occurred. Purple Smith says, growing up, my parents' property line was 3 feet too close to the garage. We had a lease with the neighbours for that 3 foot, spanning the length of the property line for $50 a year. Super cheap because we were all friendly and respectful. When we moved, the new owners were dicks. The cool neighbours charged them $50 a month for the same 3 foot bit. Turned out, our lease was the same as the new owners, but since we were a cool family, they only charged us in January each year. What would you guys do about a property encroaching on yours like that? Would you have them remove the building? Anyway, our next post is by Nutmega23, titled, She Gives Born Again a Bad Name. My sister, entitled sister, was the firstborn child and grandchild on both sides, so she got used to being put on a pedestal quite early. Entitled sister was smart, but as she got older, it was apparent she lacked both common sense and common courtesy. She was also a master manipulator, so mum and dad did everything for her. This would come to bite them in the rear later in life. When our father was ill, the only time entitled sister and her husband, brother-in-law, would visit him would be the 1 hour a day his favourite television show was on. Other than that, nothing. At the post-funeral dinner, entitled sister made sure to load her plate with extra food, and brother-in-law said the waitress didn't deserve a tip because she wouldn't fill entitled sister's wineglass to the rim. There is a legal limit, mates. They left paying less than their share. When our mother got ill, entitled sister and brother-in-law would visit, expecting mum to serve them, but not take her out or anything. Once, after they took mum to the doctor, mum was quite nauseous for the rest of the day, and entitled sister had to sit in the front seat while hubby drove. Mum begged me not to ever let them take them to the doctor again. Once, they left mum leaning against a couch after mum's leg was broken in an accident. They couldn't move mum to a chair because entitled sister and brother-in-law have bad backs. So why couldn't they have asked me for help? I was nearby. In the end, entitled sister showed her true self when mum asked her for help with something, and entitled sister outright refused. Mum died, knowing just how unimportant she was to entitled sister. It's amazing how people show their true colours when their parents are dying. I have a cousin whose mother's got sick. Instead of taking care of her, he already lived with her and was 40 years old at the time, lived with her his entire life. He sent her to a nursing home. This story is going to start to sound ridiculous, but I swear it's true. He broke his hips falling on some ice and checked into the very same nursing home that she was at. He was in heaven. He loved being waited on, scheduled meals, etc. His room was down the hall from hers. As far as I know, he never ever went down to her room to see her in the month he was there. She died soon after. This guy was coddled on by his mother his entire life. She cooked for him, did almost everything for him. He's about 60 now and still lives in that same house and has never been married. When I read he broke his hip, I was like, karma! But I kept reading and that went downhill real quick. Honestly, I blame the mum for some of that. People don't do their kids any favors when they coddle them and inhibit them from growing up and becoming independent adults. Some kids break away and some don't. Guess your cousin didn't. I call that 75% parent and 25% kid, mainly from seeing the dynamic with my mum and little sister. It's crippling for a parent to treat a kid that way and started from infancy. Not a lot a kid can do to combat it well. Took some very hard times and hard struggle for my mum and sis to curb the dynamic. What do you guys think of dynamics like that? My mum has been like that with me for a bit. I think that's just because I struggled in life a lot, but I feel like I'm independent now, so could be like a case-by-case basis. Not sure. Our next post is by Cleonardo96, titled, "Entitled Teacher Insists that there is a law forcing me to marry my cousin." Roll Tide! So first off, this happened a few years ago, and I'm on a crap load of meds. So I'm a little loopy, so my storytelling might not be the best. So I was in an online class, but my teacher insisted on us all meeting up once or twice a week. That didn't seem so bad that it was a language class after all, but I was the only one that was ever there and we rarely ever talked about class-related stuff. One day I mentioned that I was native. I'm white passing, but I'm a card-carrying tribal member raised on the res my whole life. My teacher was super white, and this is when it got crazy. She started saying that there were laws saying I needed to marry within my tribe to keep the bloodlines going. I told her that my tribe is very small and we are all cousins or aunties, uncles, nieces, plus there is no law. She insisted that it was a tribal law and that I needed to have my kids with cousins to keep the bloodlines pure. She insisted for about 20 minutes, even saying once I fulfill my duty of keeping the bloodlines pure, I can divorce my cousin and do whatever I wanted, and eventually I just gave up. The next time she wanted to meet, I was creeped out and skipped out. After that, my grades went down. I had nothing under an 87% previously, and now suddenly I was getting 5% on all of my assignments. I went to the dean and they said it was unacceptable, and they talked to her, and she said it was a misunderstanding. I had to meet with her on campus for the remainder of the semester, but she gave me 100% no matter what, so I guess that's a win. I have a couple of what the hells here. One, as a teacher, what the hell is she doing telling a student who to marry and sleep with? Two, as a white person, not associated with the tribe whatsoever, what the hell does it matter to her who you have kids with? She's a teacher and white, so therefore she knows everything better than those backward What the hell? Such a colonizer attitude. I know your laws better than you. Pfft, bullshit. Yeah, like she was in the tribal meeting every month. Eye roll. It was super creepy. Who even thinks it's okay to insist that I screw with my cousin? It sounds like something that would be printed in the local newspaper with no verification as a flavor piece that she took hook, line, and sinker. I suppose one of the bigger tribes may have to implement something like that in the past if there was a more ethnocentric element in the leadership, although I do doubt that this was ever really a thing anywhere. The closest I could think of was the propaganda in Nazi Germany. Even if there was such a law at one time, and she had evidence of it, I'm not even American, and I know there are several different extant tribes, all of whom would have their own traditions. How could she know you belong to the one she knew had this law? You're right, it sounds like a tabloid thing, and it does sound very, very Nazi-ish. And yeah, she had zero knowledge of my tribe, unlike me, who is a part of the tribe and grew up in it. We actually have the opposite of what she thought. Even before the colonizers got here, we had very organized systems in place to go to other tribes, and to make sure our spouses were not related to us. It's against our culture and tradition to commit incest, like she was insisting. And that's where I'm going to leave it today, guys. Tell me what you thought about me reading comments. I think it does add to the video, like you guys were saying in the AITA video. I won't lie. I don't know how you feel about people just reading the stories and not some of the comments. Maybe it's something I'll try out as well in these videos. It feels better to read comments. I know sometimes I read too many, but when I'm reading them, it just feels good because it adds so much more to the story. The OP replies and we get to a second side of the story. Anyway, that's just my headcanon. I hope you guys have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!